most people going into that are diagnosed with cancer and told they have to have chemotherapy, they don't know how destructive chemotherapy is. But the reality is chemotherapy drugs poison every cell in your body. Here's the thing about chemotherapy. You know, chemotherapy came from mustard gas research in the 1950s, during World War II. They found that mustard gas suppressed the immune system of soldiers that were exposed to it, and they thought, well, maybe this could help with lymphomas, with immune system-based cancer. So that's where chemotherapy started, with mustard gas derivatives. In fact, there's still a chemotherapy drug called Mustargen. Anyway, it is highly toxic, and what most people going into that are diagnosed with cancer and told they have to have chemotherapy, they don't know how destructive chemotherapy is. They're only told a very little bit of information about it, which is that, it kills cancer cells, but it will also make you sick and your hair falls out. You'll lose your appetite. You'll be nauseous. You may throw up. You may feel bad, and it can suppress your immune system. And then it's a very short conversation. But the reality is chemotherapy drugs poison every cell in your body. They cause, if you look at all the drugs together, they cause a myriad of extremely life-threatening problems in the body, starting with your brain. They cause brain damage. They cause hearing loss. They cause peripheral neuropathy, which is the losing of feeling in your fingers and toes, hands and feet. So it starts with the tips of your fingers and it works your way down. I know people that have gone through chemotherapy and their hands are just mangled. They can't even use their hands anymore from the chemotherapy. They can't walk because they can't feel their feet anymore. Chemotherapy causes bone marrow and immune system damage. It destroys your immune system. It destroys your kidneys. It destroys your bladder. So you have to wear a diaper sometimes for the rest of your life. It causes lung and heart damage. It poisons you from head to toe. And it's serious poison. Now, the problem is, on top of all that, chemotherapy drugs, many of them are carcinogens. They're listed carcinogenic. They're known carcinogens listed by the U.S. National Toxicology Department as cancer-causing chemicals. So not only do they suppress your immune system and destroy your immune system, but they will also cause additional cancers in your body. So this is some seriously damaging stuff. And most cancer patients are completely clueless. And that's why so many people that go through cancer, it's always the same story. They get the cancer, they have surgery, they have chemotherapy, oh, the tumor shrinks a little bit, or the tumor's gone, or the cancer's gone for a very short time, and everybody's like, yay, the cancer's gone, I'm cancer-free, woo! And within a few months to a year, the cancer's back, it's worse, and it's spread all over their body. And that's because of what I just said. Because it destroys your immune system, chemotherapy, and it causes secondary cancers throughout the body. So whatever cancer stem cells, which are usually not killed by chemotherapy because they're slow growing, cancer stem cells reproduce after the chemo stops, and your immune system is destroyed, so it can't keep them in check. And then new cancers start to form in other parts of the body from the chemo. So it's like an avalanche.
So it sounds like what you're saying is under no circumstances would you recommend chemo. Am I correct?
So the research on the effectiveness of chemotherapy is that on average it only contributes about 2.1% to 5-year survival. There was a groundbreaking study in 2004 that studied 150,000 Americans and Australians, and it looked at their 5-year cancer survival, and they looked at a bunch of different cancers. And what they found was that that on average, chemotherapy only contributed 2.1% to 5-year survival. 5-year survival for cancer, for all cancers, if you lump them all together, it's about 60%. With chemotherapy, it might give you an extra 2%. There are a few cancers that respond better. Childhood leukemia, some lymphomas, and testicular cancer. Those respond the best to chemotherapy, but still not that great. Solid mass tumor cancers respond the worst, and a lot of cancers have 0 5-year survival, 0, but they're still giving cancer patients chemotherapy anyway. It does not make any sense. It's a giant money-making system that is basically robbing the health and wealth of cancer patients. And the reality is cancer is natural. It's a normal process in the body. Your immune system is designed to identify and eliminate cancer cells. That's what happens in healthy bodies every day. That if you have cancer, it means that your body's overloaded with toxins and you're starving for nutrients, and you may have some emotional and spiritual and mental stress that you need to deal with in your life. But the great news is you can deal with all those things. You can change your life. You can change your diet. You can forgive people. You can get right with God. You have the power to reverse your health. That's the good news about health and healing and about, food from the earth that God has made, is that it is available for us to use. We just have to start eating it.
So I'm sure you feel the same about radiation. It's just terrible as well. And so
Radiation can make cancer cells 30 times more malignant. It also creates cancer supercells that breast cancer, especially in breast cancer research, that creates breast cancer stem cells and like these supercells that are extremely angry. All you're doing is really just pissing it off when you irradiate and poison cancer with chemotherapy. Because what people don't realize is, yeah, it'll shrink a tumor. Radiation will shrink a tumor. Chemo will shrink a tumor, but it will come back stronger because it's not killing the cancer stem cells. It's only killing the daughter cells, for lack of a better word. And so shrinking a tumor means nothing, but that's what they use to report that chemotherapies or radiation has a benefit. And even the language they use is so deceptive because they'll say, well, this particular drug has been shown to respond very well to your type of cancer, or your type of cancer has been shown to respond very well to this particular drug. Well, what does respond mean? Respond means that they've been shown to shrink it by 50% over the course of about 4 weeks. That doesn't mean anything, So the words that they use are so deceptive. The language is so deceptive. You just can't believe anything they're telling you in the medical industry. So having said all that, your question was, would I ever, recommend chemotherapy or do chemotherapy? For me, knowing very little, 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, it was a last resort. I had made a decision to radically change my life, to do every natural therapy I could find and afford. Nutrition was the foundation. I did a lot of other natural therapies too, a lot of herbal therapies, coffee enemas, vitamin C IVs, lots of other stuff just to try to help. And chemo was the last resort. Now, there's one type of chemotherapy that is, that I really don't have a problem with, and that's low-dose chemotherapy. It's called insulin potentiation therapy. Sure. And that's where they take about 10% of a normal chemo dose, and they give your body basically an injection of insulin, which triggers the cancer cells to open up, and then they give a very low dose of chemo, and the cancer cells suck it right up. And that, to me, is a much more effective way of shrinking a tumor temporarily, than these high-dose chemotherapies. So there's a lot of alternative and holistic oncologists, integrative oncologists that are using what's called IPT, low-dose chemotherapy, and with good success. So, again, I don't have much of a problem with that.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.